Welcome to the Q&A. It's your time to get questions answered. We may not have as many this week, or we may have some really maybe some deep issues to talk about this week. I don't know. We'll see. I hope that this week was enlightening to you in some way. I hope that you were challenged in some ways. I know that I get the sense a lot of people thought that maybe this is kind of silly when they heard the example or things like that. But then what I saw as the week unfolded, there was quite a bit of aha moments and epiphanies all over the place. So it looked like it was productive. It looked like it was something that was, again, like Steve says here, enlightening for a lot of people. And that doesn't have anything to do with me. That has everything to do with you guys being diligent about what you're after and getting after it and placing some trust in me to help you guys. Yeah, let's get a whole crop of turtle traders and get them on the desk. That's what we're trying to do here. So let's get after it. All right. In terms of the format, we will do this similar to Futures Friday. So general banter is in the chat, and then official questions. Let's pile them into the Q&A, and we'll get to as many as we can, and first come first serve type deal. So you should be able to click a little Q&A box and bring it up, and I will monitor that. In general, though, I think my recap, I believe it was last night, or the nightly report as we're calling it, was kind of cool because you're starting to see, oh, you know what? Like, we can monitor pullbacks, and that's going to be something that we're going to keep doing. We can monitor the quality of a pullback, and that's something we're going to keep doing. We can look for a turning point in the momentum, which I don't believe is something that I mentioned. That's something we're going to keep doing. So it was a very dumbed down approach, but there are going to be some technical aspects of it that we keep going. All right, a lot of people on this webinar, but no questions. Might be real quick. Oh, here's one. This drill was far more effective than a lot of other outside psychological work. I think that's a very important first point there. Do you have any other suggestions for drills similar to this one? So first, let me kind of address that first point and expand on it a little bit. You can, it's really like I say in the course. You can nod your head, right? You can listen to me. You can read something. You can have something said to you, whatever it might be. But that, even if it like strikes a chord in you and is something that you say, yeah, I believe that. Yeah, that sounds insightful. Yeah. Change is hard, and we're having to go against some very deeply ingrained things that, for better or for worse, and quite frankly, for a lot of times for better, we come wired that way as humans and as the way we're brought up in society. So just hearing it isn't enough. So I think that's just really important to re-stress the emphasis on, by the way, as we move forward, as we go beyond mental framework, which we're going to start on Monday. The tendency for traders is to forget mental framework, right? Oh, okay, that's that. Insightful, great. Now let's get to the good stuff. Be careful. So I'm going to continue to hammer on you guys and continue to re-bring up mental framework, because it needs to be something that is just throughout the fabric of what we do, even as we venture more down the technical path and really get to the charts and the trading. We need to not forget about what we're doing there. So Other suggestions, other drills. To me, it's all there's things that are really interrelated. And one of the biggest things, other than the, I don't even know what we call that exercise, but it's just, let's say, objective. It comes from Mark Douglas, Trading in the Zone, where he says, reduce complexity, reduce subjectiveness in a trading methodology, pick something, doesn't matter what it is, and then work on it and just notice yourself if you have trouble following it perfectly or not and things like that. So we kind of went and ran with that for this exercise. The thing that I want to say to Edward in terms of other things right off the bat is, even though next week or the next week or the next week, you might not be doing that exercise, what you did in terms of journaling, in terms of noticing yourself, in terms of making affirmations a part of what you're doing, in terms of preparing before the market ever opens, reviewing after the market is done, make the mental framework work a part of the fabric of your day-to-day trading. And quite frankly, that's the mother lode of all trading exercises, is to not put the mental framework aside and say, okay, let's build from there. And that's good now, because like I was, humorously, I guess, warning you on the lesson on Monday, you still don't have it. Even if you had some breakthroughs this week or whatever, you still don't have it. We haven't spent enough time on this for you to have new habits. So you don't have any new habits. You just have, hey, this feels nice, right? And what's the old adage about, I don't know if there is an adage, but there should be one about, it works so well, I quit doing it. Each of you are right here, right now, at that crossroads of, it's working so well, you're probably going to quit doing it. Okay. So very important that you keep it going. Like I'm telling Edward here, make it a part of the fabric of what we do going forward, and let's not forget about it. And that goes beyond this 6 weeks we have together. The 0535 could be something. Check out the blog post on that. It could be something you can adopt to be fully mental framework. It's meant to be more of a touch, a regrounding with a top-down approach. That was kind of how I designed it, was let's not forget narrative. Let's go back to narrative and bring ourselves out of looking at order flow. But you can do the same thing in terms of grounding yourself with the mental framework, and then begin your process of looking for trades again. Reground yourself. And again, that goes along the lines with another blog post, Looseness and Lasers, or whatever it's called, about cycling in between those states, if you will. And you can apply that to mental framework as well. Other things you can do in terms of exercises would be basic visualizations, right? One thing I always suggest with visualizations, I don't know why I have the hardest time saying that word consistently, is something I say that I think is a little different than what a lot of the literature out there is on, is I like to do 2 types of visualizations. One is your normal, open up those pathways for that positivity and achieving what it is that you want to be able to do, whether it's, shooting free throws. Like one of my favorite studies of visualizations did all these control groups and whatnot of people normally practicing for a couple weeks of learning how to shoot better free throws in basketball, and other people who did like nothing but visualizing getting better. Once they were taught how to do it, they said, okay, now you don't touch a basketball for a week, you visualize doing it. They saw the same improvements from those people as the ones who actually practice. So really, really powerful stuff on the positive side, visualizing what you want to do. What I like to throw into there is a negative visualization to help you connect with that emotional response to who you don't want to be, right? the trader you don't want to be, the things you don't want to do, the things that you keep repeatedly doing, making mistakes that you want to correct. Put yourself in that situation and visualize doing the wrong thing. And then visualize the consequences and how you are not any closer. In fact, you're probably further away than you were the day before at getting better and getting to where you want to be as a trader. So that can have some, emotion is the great motivator, right? You look at even, sales or marketing techniques or things like that. What is it that people try and do? They try and strike that emotional chord with you, because without that, you're probably not going to click the button and make the purchase. So a lot of people try and do things like that in all aspects of life to motivate. So you can do the same thing with yourself. I forget where I got that from. I didn't. That's not an original thing. That is probably from Steenbarger. I'm not sure. But I think, Edward, I think that you in particular, of probably anyone in this class, has spent the most time looking into the psychological side of trading and whatnot. And I think, maybe you could head up a new thread or something in the room. And I know you have some things that are existing, but get the conversations going in there regarding, hey, here's some other drills that we could think of and whatnot. Because I don't have the answers to all types of drills. Those are just a handful of things that I've found helpful that I get my students and traders to focus on. Okay, Paul, what is the benefit of looking at a 3-bar turn over a 4-bar turn? Does a 4-bar turn offer a more true feel to a traditional timing component of a 3 or 5 minute bar? I'm not sure I entirely understand. So I don't know what you mean by the word 3 or 4-bar turn, but I'm going to take it to mean a 3 or 4-bar pullback that we looked for within our exercise. Yes. Okay. Confirm. Cool. So he's putting it another way here. Is there more edge on a 4-bar versus a 3-bar rotation? Maybe. It's not something I know the mathematical answer to, Paul, but I do know that if I'm going to trade a sequence and I'm looking to get long, I can tell you that I have more success with a 1, 2, 3, 4-bar pullback and then maybe the turn and the entry than I do something like this. Let's just do more of an extreme, right? A 2-bar type pullback. Now, where is the fine line between 4 and, do we like 100-bar pullbacks? Is that the best pullback? Probably not. So one thing that we could look to, and I guess my real answer here to Paul that I want to get to is, 2 might be too quick. 100 is definitely too many. But these things do depend on context. So sometimes we might take a 2-bar pullback in a really, really strong situation with a really, really fast tape and a really above average volume. And there could be a situation for it. More times than not, markets have kind of an ebb and a flow to them. And that's going to vary from market to market. And as I said, that's going to vary from situation to situation in terms of volatility and whatnot. But in general, and this is why people like FT71 and all these people out there do studies on rotations and whatnot, is because they kind of take a look at, okay, what's most frequently occurring? One thing I think is most important is to not look at over the past 2 years, what's that distribution look like? What's that, median mode type area on that? I like to do it, as what you'll learn in this course is more based around rhythm, and that's something Paul knows about, which is more short term. What does that distribution look like over the past 4 hours, right? And so getting a sense of that rhythm and what the market is, its tempo is, and what those pullbacks typically look like is part of the art form and the study, and however objective you want to be about it, around timing these rotations and what you're looking for in terms of how many bars you might look for a pullback. The ultimate answer I want to get to with this question is don't get overly precise with that. I picked 4. You know, I could have picked 5. I could have picked 3. I could have picked 6. Anywhere in there, I think, for normal conditions on the intraday timeframes I typically look at, it's going to be something that's good enough. And as Paul knows, and as the rest of you who are new NADRO students will find out, we will not only look at the number of bars, not precisely though. We don't say, hey, you need at least 3 bars. You know, that's not what we do, but we just use it in general terms. You need a decent amount of what we're going to call time. And I'll get back to the drawing board here. What we're really saying, even if it's a volume bar, just hang with me. It still takes time for these things to unfold. We're going to consider, and this is getting ahead, but we're going to do it real quickly. We're going to consider the depth of the pullback, which is on the y-axis here, okay? That's going to matter when selecting a pullback. And we're also going to consider the time that the pullback takes, which would be what Paul's asking about. Was it 1 bar like this? Was it 2, 3, 4 bars like we used in the exercise? Was it 5, 6, 7 bars like might still be a fantastic opportunity? Right? So we're going to look at both the X and Y axes to gauge pullbacks and manage expectations and consider what's good enough in terms of a pullback. But don't get overly technical about it would be my recommendation. What's that old school price action guy? Al Brooks, I think. We're not going to get to Al Brooks level of counting bars and things like that. Okay. Nathaniel, can you talk generally about letting a loss run out of hope it will come back? Letting a loss run out of hope it will come back. We'll keep reading. Versus micromanaging a winner and putting stops so tight out of fear of letting a winner turn into a loser. These seem common to the natural human trader. Absolutely. I'm with you now. Letting a loss run out of hope it will come back because of the, I understand. Hopium, yes. So just to bring everyone up to speed in case you're unaware, common things that natural human traders do, as Nathaniel is aware of here, is the opposite of the old trading adages about cut your winners short, cut your losers short, let your winners run. We do the opposite naturally. Why is that? So I think that's the first question to address. We do that because when a loser starts, as Nathaniel pointed out, a loser starts to go against us, the only thing that locks that in as a certainty and a finalized, thing is if we actually hit the button and exit, right? So the loser becomes an actualized loss if you admit it and accept it and take the loss and exit the market. So it's a natural thing to say, I'm gonna like this isn't happening. I'm gonna sit here and hope that it turns around and bails me out, relieves me from discomfort, which I think is the absolute most critical component and way that I think of it. So on the losing side, it's uncomfortable that you're losing. You don't want to lose. Typically, the natural human trader has not redefined what it means to win. So for them, they really are a failure and messing up, and something is wrong if they're losing on a trade. You guys know from everything we've talked about this week, we must think differently about a losing trade and all that stuff. So we can let go of that because we know it's random. We know that we're going to have losses as a natural part of what we do. It's unavoidable. We know that our edge is not going to show up on the very next trade. It's going to show up over sample size. So we have to acquire sample size before anything really matters. All that stuff. So really what I think the natural human trader is doing in the biggest way, the most important thing in not cutting a loss, is avoiding the discomfort of accepting the loss. So the hope is that it's I hope I can get out of this uncomfortable situation. That's really, to me, what it comes down to. So getting comfortable being uncomfortable, right? And working on your belief systems so that, again, Band-Aid fix versus the real fix is working on those belief systems so that you're not so uncomfortable, so that a single losing trade is not actually bothering you that bad. That's the ticket. And on the winning side of things, it's really fear, and the fear creates a discomfort. So what do I mean? We start to see, we glance up at the dome and we see, oh, I'm up $1,200 on this trade. I'd like $1,200. I'd like to have a good day today, right? Oh, there's some selling on the tape here. There's a down candle. Okay, now it's $1,100. The market's taking money out of my pocket. I had $1,200 before. I really want $1,200, but now I only have 11. Oh, now I only have 1,000. This thing, it could take it all from me. I'm now afraid. I'm afraid the market is going to take away what is, what's the word? Paper profits, this money that's kind of in my account, kind of not. The market is threatening to now take it away from me. I better do something about that. I know the old trading adage. I'm all about adages today. I don't know why. Never let a winner turn into a loser. No. It's not a good belief system to build things on. It's at times, depending on narrative and depending on the situation, it deserves the risk. Just because it's gone a little bit in your favor does not mean that we need to, in my opinion, you're creating something out of thin air that needs to happen. You and where you got into a position from whatever level or price that was is totally irrelevant. It doesn't matter. The market doesn't care. It's not the most important area. So just because the market might, in its random, wiggly, squiggly junk, might come back to that area, and a lot of times it does because of all these people who put their stops there, it's not using market-generated information and filtering it through your process to make good decisions. It's you giving into fear, moving a stop to break even, or just scratching out of the trade because you're afraid those profits are going to continue to evaporate, or that you fear that they'll evaporate in general. So I hope that answers somewhat about kind of getting inside the head of the natural human trader there in terms of what's going on there. And I really do think it's not being strong enough in those underlying belief systems that we're talking about and we're working on, so that you get the stimuli. Remember, market threatens to turn around on you in a winner. The market threatens to keep going against you on a loser. Based on your belief systems and that same information coming to you, trader A, with great belief systems versus trader B without them, natural human trader, your perception to the threat level of what's going on is totally different. And so The natural human trader is going to experience the discomfort, and it's going to require a tremendous amount of willpower and discipline not to give in to that. Or if the self-awareness component isn't there, you just give into it without almost thinking about it, and then you're kicking yourself for the rest of the day. Woulda, coulda, shoulda. The evolved human trader is going to do all the things properly. They're going to eventually, you don't have it right now. Warning, you still don't have it, right? It's going to take time. The evolved human trader develops over time the right belief systems so that when you get the stimuli that comes in and could be threatening or whatever, that's all your perceptions. So your belief systems drive those perceptions. They change how you might feel about something, and therefore you don't experience the discomfort. You don't have to battle yourself and all those things. This is the golden ticket. All right. Thanks, Nathaniel. Stefan, what should we do so that all this becomes habit? It's like I talked about with Edward. It needs to, just because we're about to move on to charting and trading and the real NADRO methodology stuff. Just because you finished the 6-week program and you're seeing markets like you never saw them before, just because insert whatever XYZ thing, it's not just going to happen. It's not unlike trying to make any other habit. If you're going to change your diet, you might do it for a couple days, then stop. If you're going to try and lose weight, you might do it for a week and then stop. What you need to do is sustain the effort. And specifically with what we're doing here, what do you need to do to make it a habit? It's what I was talking about with Edward. Make it a part next week, after this 6 weeks, whatever the case may be. Make it a part of the fabric, the routine, the thought process, the journaling, the prep before the session, the review after the session. Make mental framework and keep mental framework a priority. That's what I'm going to ask of you. John pointing out all kinds of research out there. You know, some say it takes at least 30 days to form a habit. Some take 60, all that kind of thing. So start forming the good habits that you can control, which is our prep, our journaling, our affirmations, our review work, all that stuff. Start controlling those habits so that ultimately the real habits, which it's not really, the belief system gets changed because we're creating good habits to do that. I forget the exact phrase I used, but Stefan, to wrap it up, it's sustained focus, sustained energy and effort and focus over considerable period of time. Call it 60 days, whatever the case may be. Probably a good habit to just consider yourself a brand new trader in terms of this week was week 1, and forget about 60 days from now. Just make a life choice here. Just say, I'm all in on this, and this is the way it's going to be in perpetuity. Is how it's going to be. This is going to be a priority of mine. I'm going to make it a focus. And you'll get to a point where it's just obvious that a lot of this is getting better for you. You won't see it like that, like you want to, like you thought before my warning when I was telling you this stuff on Monday. But what will happen is, I guess it's kind of like getting old or something. Like you wake up one day and you kind of realize you're old. You know, it's one of those things. Like you'll be doing a end of day review one day and going through your trade sequence, and all of a sudden you'll realize, holy smokes, like that wasn't even a struggle. You know, I used to be crazy with my risk, and now it's like it's not even a part of who I am anymore. That's the way it was for me. I was psycho with risk. I would just max out my buying power, whatever was in the account. Just I get pissed off, and I'm gonna keep doubling down, or whatever the case may be. I was very risk seeking. That's how I started out. So I had a lot of tough licks, a lot of hard lessons with that stuff. And then I started figuring out journaling and working on understanding myself better and my triggers and things that lead to bad decisions and all those kind of things. And then it was kind of like I woke up one day and realized, wow, I don't really have a problem with risk anymore. I still got other problems, but risk management is just an afterthought. It's something that's a given. And so that's how it can be with you and whatever it is that's really holding you back with some of your trading. If you put in the sustained effort, energy, consistently over time on your mental framework, make it a part of the fabric of your daily trading and focus and whatnot. Diedrich, I noticed that I had problems sticking to stops later in trading day. What can we do additionally to improve our exit strategy when fatigue and related reduction of focus sets in? It is a muscle. Fatigue does reduce, and mainly we are talking about kind of beginner level stuff here. So this will kind of come full circle. What you're talking about right now is a reduction of not only focus, but willpower to do the right thing. So it becomes more difficult to do that. That's because essentially right now it does take some willpower in a sense, because you will have conflict and those things. But if you keep up with the work that I've given you to do and the ways of thinking about things and the ways of approaching your day-to-day trading and doing all this, you're going to fix the belief systems slowly. You're going to take energy out of the old ones. You're going to add energy and life to the new ones. And then you will get less fatigued with doing your exit strategy the way it should be done. That's what we're trying to do here. So right now, take breaks, recharge, make sure you're taking care of yourself physically, those kind of things. It's all connected on that front. But then you're going to make mistakes. Accept it, study it, look at the sequence that led to it. Are they typically late in the day when you get more fatigued, right? Study it. Implement things to help with that, such as breaks or not trading after a certain number of hours or whatever the case may be. And then most importantly, keep working on what we're working on with mental framework, and you'll actually see a reduction in that type of fatigue and those problems. All right, a lot of questions here. So I'm going to try and really start to go through them faster because we will not get to these. One thing I found interesting, Jao says, during this week's exercise is that after a winning streak, I get too relaxed. Yep. This is exact in line with what I feel after a week or a great month, even after a great sequence of days. It's almost like my brain keeps telling me that I'm mastering a certain topic that I know I'm not, therefore leading to overconfidence. Could you briefly go over one of your processes or tactics to not let yourself, to not get too comfortable or too relaxed or overconfident? One thing I like to do is pre-market self-check-in with confidence. And what I mean by that is check in, how confident are you? Right? Have you had a really good streak? Because it goes both ways. If you've had that really good streak, become mindful of it. That's what I think is most helpful. Because naturally, these things are going to happen. And over time, you'll settle down because you'll start to experience more ups and more downs. And you'll just start to get used to that little bit of a roller coaster trading type stuff. But beyond that, I think becoming self-aware, becoming mindful purposefully before you begin trading, hey, I'm at that place I know I get to where I'm overconfident. This means that my risk might go out the window. It might, what it does to your trading. So admit it, get a Post-it note out, slap it somewhere, and remind yourself and try and be more aware of that. And it's really no different of a model than what I've presented to you so far. Your belief systems will help reduce the impact of this. So we're going to keep working on those. Your self-awareness will help you realize in the moment when you do have that impulse to violate your risk because you're overconfident or whatever, take that fourth or fifth or sixth or seventh attempt at the same idea, even though you're supposed to be three strikes and out. Your self-awareness will not allow you to just do the same model that we've talked about that you are going to have to adopt, which is, oh, I noticed a desire to do this, to take that seventh trade in a row. Oh, let's filter it through market generated information through my process, which includes a risk management process. And let's now, with that understanding, make the right decision. And eventually, as you continue to work on the belief system stuff, that battle, how hard it is to say, I'm aware of what is the right thing to do here. I'm going to do the right thing. Most people don't have good enough process, so they truly don't have a clue. They don't have a freaking idea what the right thing for them to do is. And we're going to fix that with you guys as we go on forward. And then nobody's working on their mental framework. They're all looking at the next indicator. So they're not becoming more mindful. They're not working on their belief systems, all those kind of things. So really the answer is exactly what we've already presented. It's just with a different twist. Matthews, it was saying, don't forget to breathe. And that's absolutely true. And what he's saying, he found that he's legitimately holding his breath during, probably more intense sequences in his trading session. I'm the same way. You notice that tightness, that, like you're not breathing. You're not just like relaxed. There is that. And that's part of what we talked about on Monday's session. Notice those physical cues. Matthews started to notice some of his. I encourage everyone to do those. Another one is this, versus relaxed, that type thing. And as you practice this, noticing physical cues and journaling about them and being more and more aware of them and working on your awareness and all that kind of stuff, you'll begin to, like, for example, with me leaning forward in my chair, an alarm will go off when the back of your chair isn't touching your lower back isn't touching the chair. You'll begin to be, oh, I know what that is, Any recommendation format structure for journal template? Yes, and we will cover that in depth in the future. So I guess let's hold off on that, and we will get there as we get you specific things to journal. So yeah. Hayden, hey Merritt, how important is having set trading hours, structure, and what and when to trade, especially for developing traders? I think this is something that has hindered my progress thus far. I've been kind of all over the place with his trading hours and things like that. Yeah, I think a lot of people get really, really excited about markets and different things, and then they think they can, wake up at 6 a.m. and trade some pre-market crude oil, and then trade the S&P when it opens, and then, trade the close of the Bund, and, so on and so on through, like, I'm going to trade some Hang Seng in Asia, and I'm going to trade the European Open or whatever, right? Or crypto, like some of the things we've been talking about in terms of fatigue and whatnot. You got to respect that. You're a human. Like, trading can be very taxing mentally, and you got to take care of yourself. You can't just grind all the time. That there's not going to be good results that come from that. So the advice is just to be realistic. It's to be balanced. Go get some fresh air. Do things like that. But in terms of setting really, really precise trading hours, it could be something that you need, right? A lot of times trading rules don't work for everyone. But trading rules that you've thought about where there's an issue and you can implement them to help you do something better that you are having trouble with, it works. So if it helps you, Hayden, put in some rules. Another thing we'll do as we progress is start to look at statistics, and you might find that you have very highly efficient, profitable hours, and then other times where you're losing money consistently. Hello, there's some trading hours for you, or at the very minimum, prime hours. And then if you are going to take something in those other hours, know that you're historically a loser there, so it better be a pretty dadgum good, trade. So improve the selectivity there. Does time frame affect your mental framework, says Steve, differently? Scalping versus longer holds and targets. I don't think it affects your mental framework, right? Because what affects our mental framework? It's the belief systems we're developing, and those we're all going to deal with a lot of similar stimuli and things like that. So I think perhaps the way we should address that is, do you need different mental framework skills, if you will, or dynamics to thrive in different trading timeframes? And I think the answer is no. I think it's, from what I've seen and experienced and whatnot with myself and others, it's a pretty standard, like, evolved human trader, the way you need to think and approach things. The thing that's really different about swing trading versus an intraday scalper are the tactics and different skills that you'll need to apply that methodology style differently. So no, I think the mental framework is going to be pretty consistent. Stephen, I understand that true acceptance of market uncertainty and letting go of outcomes is key to allowing us to properly see, I like the way you use that, all caps, the market. Would you say that leaning on our process, prep, and trust in the math over time, positive expectancy, are the primary mental aspects to emphasize and not get scattered with all the mental tactics out there to change our beliefs? Let me reread this. It would be exactly the way I gave it to you in the course, man. We do need to be able to properly see. In general, mental framework is going to help with that. There's the key components to it, including understanding where we come from as a natural human trader, the types where we want to get to as an evolved human trader, the individual things within an evolved human trader, such as understanding natural human trader, what trading is, what markets are all about, and then working on being mindful and understanding the probabilities, as you said, and things like that. Like, those are the main, like, four, components to really getting to that point you want to be. So yeah, there's all kinds of different other tactics and things out there which may be helpful in your pursuit of going after each of those things. But I just couldn't speak to all of them. Nick, after becoming CPT, did you find you revert to NHT tendencies every time you sized up, or did it feel a little uncomfortable, but you maintained a healthy EHT mindset? It hasn't happened in a bit, but I can tell you at a couple levels of progression, I don't want to call it. Now, there have been times during some bad drawdowns and things like that where I have absolutely reverted to some natural human trader tendencies. It has happened. It's rare, but it has happened. Typically, those have coincided with my merit holistic picture life and trading and balance and things like that. My worst drawdown was a couple summers ago, and quite frankly, I was overworked. I was pulled in so many different directions. I didn't have enough help. And it led to me reverting in ways to really bad trading mentality and whatnot. So that's what happened there. But just sizing up and things like that, I have felt not reversion to NHT, but cloudiness. And that's just kind of nerves and putting a lot of overly losing a little bit. So maybe it is a little bit, but I think losing a little bit of sight of the big picture, and then all of a sudden you're placing too much importance on, wow, this is a big trade compared to my norms or something like that. So yeah, I guess you do, as you step up a little bit, there can be some of that occurs. But for me, it's felt not in like going berserk, but more so around, it's difficult in this moment to not place a lot of importance on what's happening. Therefore, because I have worked so hard on belief systems and mindfulness and all those kind of things, I feel cloudy. I feel like the charts are upside down. I feel like I don't know what's up or down. That's what the words I've used with people when I've felt this in the past. And that's really good in terms of noticing that, because that means that normally you're at a really high level of objectivity and clarity, and that your mindfulness is at a place where you can sense when it's off. And so as an EHT, you can prevent yourself from doing damage in those situations, which is what's most important. You may not trade for crap that day, but you're not going to do something that hurts you. Is there a fine line between taking profits and letting it run? No, there is not. There is a process for managing trades, which you come up with, you design. I can help you design it. And that's all there is. There is no fine line between in any of that. There's only hindsight in what would have worked and what I wish I would have done and all that crap. And we'll talk about trade management. And one of the most important things with trade management, and I'm going to go ahead and skip this because it's not for today's questions, is that it's never going to be perfect. You choose. Trading is a limitless environment. We're creating some filters and ways of structuring data and seeing things and whatnot that we're just imposing and using to see some edge and apply some tactics. And trade management, we're crafting to do what we want to do, to take what we want to take from the market relative to our worldview of the market and our risk-reward landscape of what's possible. Beyond that, everything else is bullcrap. If you're going to scalp quick profits, that's what you designed to do and that's what you want to do. And then if it runs and you gripe about it, that's crap. If you're going to design what you want to do as a trader to capture bigger risk reward moves, and you hold for the bigger move and it turns around and comes and stops you out and you gripe about it, that's crap. Everything in trading is a trade off, and risk management falls right into that as well. So there's no fine lines with risk management. Trade management. We'll talk all about that in the future. Nadro has edge, says Ramin, but the framework having edge and us executing edge are different. That's true. That's why we have week one here, so we can help you with that. Should we stay on the demo until we can prove to ourselves that we can execute the edge before moving to live? Yes. What I mean is build confidence that we have edge before moving to live. Yes, again. Or move to small live and work on perfecting the edge that way. I'd say look, there's all kinds of ways to think about it and whatnot, but if you can't do it in sim, you can't do it live. And a lot of people talk poorly about that, but the reality is, well, the opposite part of that, which people say is, look, you may be able to do it in sim, but that doesn't mean you can do it live. That's true. There's additional hurdles and challenges to that. But if you can't do it in sim, you sure as heck can't do it live. So do that first. Do that first. Okay, last three questions here. Once you have your method, the tendency, sorry. Once you have your method, the tendency is to look at individual losers and look to fix them. But since we know that some losers and winners are due to pure randomness, should we not evaluate individual trades and wait to evaluate our technical process only over a sequence of trades? Beautiful question. Beautiful question. I really, really like this. The answer is no. We still do want to review individual trades. What we have to do, though, is review that through a particular lens. And what most people do is they review trades through the lens of hindsight. They look at a trade, they look at where they got in and where they got out relative to how big of a move there was and what was kind of on the table, so to speak, just based on the low and the high and what it did. And if, just like with Patrick's question on trade management, if you get in here and you get out right here and it does this, then what 99% of people are going to say is, that was so stupid. I knew this, blah, 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 whatever. You don't know anything. On the other end, we get into this trade and, you don't take profits when it starts to turn here because you're, recency bias. You remember what happened last trade and you want to get this target. And so you don't exit here. And then it does this and you exit here. And what do? Oh man, I knew the momentum was turning up there. I saw something on a tape. It was, I'm so stupid. No, I get, maybe you are stupid, but it's not your fault. You're a natural human trader and you can't help but deal with all this crap. Okay. So it's important not, before I answer your question, it's important not to do that. And I think most would-be, wannabe traders out there never get past that. It sounds simple. You think you're better than that, but I have advanced group mentoring students who review trades that way at times. Okay, so we can't allow hindsight to be the filter in which we judge trade decisions. Individual trades are worth reviewing. You just have to review them through the filter of your process and actual market generated information at what would be the hard right edge at any point in time as you analyze what happened and what you did relative to what you should have done. It's absolutely valuable to review individual trades like that. Winners and losers. I don't differentiate between them. Now, when it comes to statistics and looking at what your win percent is and things like that, it is not worth looking at individual trades. You need to only look at that stuff over ample sample size. Great question. Cole says, can you go over some thoughts on how to be kind to yourself when the natural human trader does take over and we really screw up? That way we can continue to put in the sustained effort we need in order to evolve despite the setbacks. I'm loving these questions. This is a really good one as well. One of the things that, I'll try and help you guys with in this, even though we're not, it's not like mentoring or something where I'm really going to be able to help a ton, even though we do have this mentoring session, in terms of individual attention. One of the things I do in advanced group mentoring is try and teach people how to self-coach. And it's important that you learn to do that. And one of the ways that you kind of have to take one hat off and put another hat on when it's time to review and when it's time to judge yourself. You really do need to treat yourself as a good coach would treat you. And that includes being hard on yourself at times, right? And so it's almost like a skill in of itself. You're gonna need to get onto yourself where it needs to be getting onto. Don't be patsy positive over there, just saying, "Hey, it's okay, you can do it." No, okay, you need to get pissed off at times, but you also need to move beyond letting that linger and being angry at yourself and carrying that kind of baggage into the next session. That's really what is important with those kind of corrections. Address it. Don't be afraid to identify the negative. Identifying a negative is a positive. So address it, understand it, take it to an actionable item. Don't just write in your journal or your end-of-day review, got to do better. No. What are you going to do? How are you going to get better? If I had a nickel for every review that I've gotten where I have to respond to the person and say, "Hey, I notice you said you want to do this better. How are you going to do that? What are you going to do tomorrow to do it better?" So taking it from admitting the negative into an action item is a very positive thing, and you can treat it just like that. It is important that you stay balanced in your review, in terms of not only being like kind of my nature is, which is to nitpick the negative, but I had to create structure in my review process to say, what did you do well today? You must answer this question. So balance is another component of it, the negatives with the positives. But just in general, I guess maybe the most important answer here is understanding the learning process. You have to kind of become like a child that's trying to learn something for the first time, and it's like trying to learn to walk. Like you don't worry about what someone else thinks about it. You're very pure in that learning environment and learning process. And as an adult, we can understand that even better, and get to a place where, like, you guys are doing a course right now. So what are you, right? You're learning from me. So what are you? A student. So treat yourself like a student, and that's going to be very positive impact on handling the screw ups. What do students do? They screw up and they correct and they get better. So you're going to screw up. You're at XYZ point on the learning curve. You're not over here yet. You're here. And so screw ups happen over here way more than they do over here, but they even happen over here too. But know that. Manage your expectations for screw ups is essentially what I'm saying. And it's part of the learning process. If you weren't armed with better and better information that hopefully you're going to get over these 6 weeks, you might not have even known how badly you were screwing up. So what a blessing to know that you're screwing up. That's how you get better. Last question. How do you balance emotion within the mental framework process? Personally, I was all over the place emotionally. I know this is something you've had to overcome yourself. Often, I've found myself struggling as to what I should be visualizing. Should it be the perfect narrative, pullback, etc., or should I be visualizing my stop outs? I'm trying to focus on one thing, but I feel my mind wandering. Let me just pause there. Let's address that because we got another paragraph question here. I think it's important to visualize potential outcomes. I think that's part of creativity, part of seeing what's the potential is for the session and things like that in terms of narrative. But you don't need to place rigid expectations on those unfolding. You need to embrace the randomness. And what I found most helpful is not necessarily what you'll find most helpful, but let me tell you, what's important is that you find ways of visualizing things, thinking about things that help you get to where you need to be. Again, some trading platitude is not for everyone. I might need to tell myself something, and you might need to tell yourself something that are polar opposites, such as you need to really visualize the win, see that the win could happen. Me, I need to tell myself, this trade's probably going to be a loser, and you need to go ahead and get real comfortable with that. So, but that's because I was overconfident with trading, and thought that I knew everything that was about to unfold and this kind of stuff, and then all of a sudden I had this dissonance when it's not, and then that led to risk management problems and not stopping out of trades and all kinds of problems that you understand. So tell yourself what you need in order to bring you back to, let's say, center, right? You might be over here and I might be over here. We both need to tell ourselves things to get us where we need to be in a healthy place to do what we need to do. That's a lot of what a lot of these affirmations are about. And that's why I wanted you guys to come up with them, because you're going to say things to yourself that hopefully bring you to where you need to be for your situation. Balancing emotion, though, I don't know. It's no, honestly, I'm just going to repeat the model again. It's the emotion comes up. I still feel that. But if you have the mindful component, you're simply aware of it. And if you're journaling, studies show that the act of observing the emotion, writing out the emotion, whatever it might be, removes you from the emotion, allows you to be more of a neutral observer of what's going on. So that allows you to detach from it. It allows you to get back to process and market generated information, the things that you need. So it's not about, dealing with emotion. It's about simply being aware of it and understanding that emotion is tugging at us to do something, right? That's that impulse, idea, feeling, desire, right? That's what the emotion does to us, whether it's fear or whatever. Be aware of it. Use a process. And this 6 weeks is going to be about developing process. Second part, I also noticed an excitement to trade, but almost to a detriment. I know exactly what you mean. Felt like a child ready to open presents on Christmas, and the prep is in my way. I know, I like that. I noticed myself rushing through the mental framework and prep just to open the charts. It's like I'm going to miss a trade, even if I don't have my charts open, which I know is not true. I made it a point this week to go through the mental framework before I ever opened the charts, and it was the most difficult thing I've ever done. That's awesome. Well, again, a lot of more of the same here, building habits so that the belief systems get improved. I was the same way. I think most people probably are. One thing that you may improve on is, out of pure necessity with this, is the more times you just hop into the charts unprepared, your results aren't going to be what you want them to be. They're not going to be. And so you'll probably learn out of disgust that you need to prep properly before you start clicking those buttons. So that's one simple approach. But other than that, just, if you can't believe in it, then try and take my word for it, right? Try and adopt my belief systems for a while, fake it till you make it, and understand that it's really, really important. And we did have one last question. This will be the last one. Wanted to ask about your tweet around that 45 win percent trader perspective, about this, 6 losers in a row, I think it was. How should we react when this happens? Well, first of all, you shouldn't react, because what we want to do is have the right belief systems in place to understand sample size, probabilities, the odds. That's why I put that tweet out today, is because how powerful is it? It's just the same as when you have a losing trade, or before you even have that losing trade, and we do an affirmation and that says, my win percent is 45%. So there's over a 50% chance that this trade is going to be one of those losers. I never know which one's going to win or lose. This one's probably going to be a loser, right? So that puts me in a good state and it lets me to handle the loss. It's no different for 6 losses. I know that there's a 72% chance that over the next 100 trades that I take, which is easily done within a month, that I will have another string of 6 losers in a row. And it's part of what we're doing here. So it's the same type thing. All right, guys. Wow, what a great string of questions. Yeah, this is what it's all about. Y'all are doing really, really good in the room. Keep up the sharing and all that kind of stuff. You're gonna, develop relationships and learn things from each other that you wouldn't have learned on your own. So that's great. And we'll get ready for Monday. We'll do a fresh session and start diving into the charts. Have a great weekend, guys. See you.